Hey, everybody, real quick, if you need a recap of Bridgerton Season 1 and 2, I've got you covered. Just hit the tab in the upper right-hand corner. It'll take you right to it. Dearest viewer, 'tis the season, and you know what that means. Lady Whistledown is officially back. She has produced her latest newsletter. It's the first one of the season, and she introduces the new heavy hitters that are all trying to vie for that diamond status. There is the exquisite Miss Malhotra. There's Miss Stowell. She's supposed to be accomplished. Miss Hartigan is mild-mannered. Miss Kenworthy's got that confident swag. And then there's Miss Berrigan, who stands out in a crowd, and she's really excited to just have her name get dropped in the pamphlet. Of course, all of this is being written by Penelope Featherington, who is entering her third season. And the prospects are still looking pretty grim. Just looks like she's destined to be a spinster. But as for the other house, the Bridgertons, they once again have somebody that they're debuting for the season. It's Francesca. And she is about as interested in getting debuted to society as Eloise was. All right, she's a little more interested, but not much. She doesn't think this is a big deal at all. As everybody prepares for that day, because it's the day that everybody presents themselves in front of the Queen, there is a returning Bridgerton who comes back. It's Colin. Fresh off of his travels and adventures, he's got a credible haircut and that look that says, yeah, I was on a ship, but I want to dock it in your harbor, if you know what I'm saying. He meets up with his family, and he, along with the rest of the Bridgertons, head on over to the palace so that they can see Francesca debut herself for the Queen. When it comes time, though, for Francesca to go in front of the Queen is not impressed. I mean, it says it in her face. But then again, the Queen hasn't been impressed with anybody so far. She looks at this season as pretty dull for the rookies. Now, one family that noticeably isn't there is the Featheringtons, because the only girl that they have who is unmarried is Penelope. They're all sitting back, and Penelope's sisters are just excited about the fact that they found husbands, and Lady Featherington is excited because now they're finally back in good standing with society. They paid off all their debts. Now, the story that she's going with is that the girl's Aunt Petunia died and left them a bunch of money, but Aunt Petunia was a spinster, and she didn't own a lot. Varley brings this up to Lady Featherington and says, are people really going to believe that? But Lady Featherington isn't worried. She says, yeah, I mean, for all they know, she was just keeping all of her money in the floorboards. She kind of brushes off Varley's thoughts because everybody's getting ready for the first gathering after the new debutantes are shown to society, or at least shown to the Queen. The Queen, though, is noticeably missing from this gathering. It's got just about all of the mothers wondering what the hell's happening here. It does get a little awkward at this gathering, though, when Penelope runs into Eloise for the first time. First time since they had their blow-up. Penelope spent all summer away. So neither of them really know what to do, and Eloise just grabs Cressida and says, hey, do you want to go get some lemonade? Which comes as a huge shock to Penelope. She can't believe that Eloise has befriended Cressida. But Penelope is the only one who's surprised, so is Eloise's family. Violet Bridgerton certainly doesn't understand it, and Colin certainly doesn't understand it either. Either way, though, no one's really interfering in it. They're just kind of letting Eloise pick her own friends for the time being until it becomes a problem. As Violet is discussing this with Kate, up walks Lady Danbury, and they question Lady Danbury on where the Queen is. And Lady Danbury admits that the Queen might have skipped this one because she's still feeling a certain way about, well, kind of messing up the diamond of the season last year. A little bit awkward to say in front of Kate, but Kate understands. The diamond of the season, though, might not be a girl. It might be a boy. It might be Colin Bridgerton. I mean, he has every single group of girls swooning over him. And this dude knows how to spit game. It becomes painfully obvious that if Colin Bridgerton wanted a wife, he would easily have one. One of the girls he walks up to, of course, is his friend Penelope. But Penelope is very cold to him and very standoffish. She has not forgotten about what she overheard in the garden last year. Colin tries to get into a conversation with Penelope about the whole Cressida and Eloise situation, but Penelope just puts a stop to it real quickly and walks off. She goes to meet up with her mother and sisters, who are currently being approached by a woman who starts to ask the girls when they're going to have kids, because now there needs to be a Lord Featherington. And the woman gets pretty rude when she says, let's hope that whoever lays claim to be the next Lord Featherington has more scruples. Or does being a thief run in the family? And Lady Featherington tries to shut her up by saying, well, in fact, there shall be no more laying claim. The last Lord Featherington actually wrote a document bequeathing the estate to my girls. just as soon as one of them produces an heir. Now, this is news to both Prudence and Philippa, and that's because she just made it up. But what this is going to kick off is a major baby race between the two. At this point, the Featherington women are making their way out of the party, and Penelope tries to include herself in this conversation, but her sisters laugh it off. And it doesn't help when her mom, getting in the carriage, turns to Penelope and says, well, at least I know that you'll always be there to take care of me. That's the last thing Penelope actually wants. It's at that moment that she decides this season needs to be different than the previous season. She cannot end up a spinster. The next day, she's going to go to the modiste and try to start planning for dresses. But the relationship between Penelope and Eloise is something that Colin can't ignore. He knows these two are best friends, and it's just so weird that his sister is now hanging out with Cressida. So he asks her about it. Eloise doesn't reveal the big secret about why their friendship broke up. She just says that they grew apart. Eloise has no interest in going deeper into that conversation. She has to go to the modiste with her mother and sister. And that's where she actually does run into Penelope again. And this time, they actually have a chance to talk. It's something that Penelope wants, but Eloise had really no interest in. Penelope apologizes to Eloise and also thanks her for not revealing the secret of who Whistledown is. At one point, she says to Eloise, you may not understand what I did, but I was only trying to protect. And Eloise cuts her off and says, no, I do not need your explanations. I kept your secret because I don't want to revisit the past. You've got your life, now I've got my life. Penelope starts to question Eloise on whether or not she's actually friends with Cressida, but Eloise just walks off, not answering the question. And the answer is yeah, they actually seem to be friends. Now, while the women were at the modistes and the dress shops, the men had gone to Will Mondrich's club. Will gets great news that day. A guy named Walter Dundas, who works for the Crown, is basically responsible for ensuring the lines of succession run smoothly within great families. Well, he shows up, and he gives the Mondriches, or I should say his son Nicholas, shocking news. He informs Will that Nicholas is now the Baron of Kent. They're moving to a really, really, really nice house. The Mondriches head off, but everybody else is getting ready for the first ball of the season. This is going to be one that the Queen does attend. Everybody recognizes that the season is off to a pretty dull start, but then it gets shaken up when Penelope arrives, and she looks incredible. She's no longer sporting these pink lemonade colors. She's wearing this green dress. Her hair looks great. I'm telling you right now, I'd probably hit on her. I would. And guys start to do that, but the problem is Penelope is just so awkward that she doesn't know how to handle herself. It's actually painful for her old friend Eloise to watch her interact with these guys because she's just not used to it and she doesn't know what to say. She has, though, gotten the attention of the Queen, who's noticed her, as has Colin. In fact, everybody's noticed her. She's not the only one who's a little bit uncomfortable at this thing. So is Francesca. As people are dancing around them, Francesca reveals to Penelope that she doesn't really like this because she feels like she's being inspected by guys, like she's a racehorse or something. Even though Penelope isn't comfortable in this situation either, she does give Francesca a nice little pep talk. And when a dude walks over and asks Francesca to dance, she accepts. But later in the night, Penelope does get approached by a guy named Lord Debling. He's very complimentary. It takes Penelope way off guard, but their conversation is being overheard by Cressida, who decides to do something super mean. She intentionally steps on Penelope's dress so that when Penelope moves, the dress rips. Penelope is completely embarrassed by the moment. She runs out of that place. Before she does, though, she catches eyes with Eloise, who immediately starts to apologize, but Penelope doesn't want to hear it because she feels like this is who Eloise wants to hang out with. Well, birds of a feather flock together. Penelope running out of the ball does catch the notice of Colin, who goes to check on her, and he's really confused on why Penelope's being so cold to him, and finally she comes out with it and says, I overheard you last year in the garden. I know what you said. You said you'd never call on me. You know, I expected people to say mean things about me, but not you. Obviously, Colin had no idea she overheard this. He's completely embarrassed, and now he feels like he lost one of his best friends. But Penelope's so pissed off at how the night went that she goes home and she writes the next edition of Whistledown, and it is not flattering for Colin Bridgerton. After writing it, Penelope decides to go to bed, and the next morning, her mother actually gets a visitor, and it's from Walter Dundas. He's got some questions about this recent letter that's popped up, claiming that the estate would go to one of her daughters once she produced a male heir. he thinks it's fishy. Without saying it, he basically says that he doesn't believe it. And if he finds out that it's forged before one of the Featherington girls has an heir, it's not going to be pretty for the Featheringtons. They're going to lose all their titles, their houses, the standing in society, everything. It's going to be really embarrassing for Lady Featherington and the rest of the girls. Lady Featherington wasn't the only Featherington woman to get a guest that day. While out in the garden, Penelope gets a guest, and it's Colin. He's come to apologize. He feels horrible about the comments last year. And he admits that, yeah, he has changed. He's not the man that he was last season, but he's certainly not ashamed of Penelope. In fact, it's the opposite. He seeks her out because he knows that she's going to lift his spirits. He starts bestowing a bunch of compliments on her and then says, "I'm proud to call you my very good friend." He realizes, though, that what she's looking for is a husband, so he wants to help her out. He wants to be her guru of game. He's going to teach her how to talk in a public setting to guys so that she can get a husband. He knows that with his help, she's going to do just fine this season. And by the time he leaves, Penelope's feeling way better about their relationship, but then she remembers what she wrote and she feels horrible about it. And when Colin gets back, it's Eloise who's already read the latest edition of Whistledown, and she shows him what Whistledown was writing about him. Now, Eloise never tells Colin who Whistledown really is, but Colin's pissed. And after what Whistledown did to Eloise the previous year, Colin vows that if he ever finds out who Whistledown is, he will ruin their life. Now, while Colin was making this bold proclamation, down the hall, Violet was discussing the upcoming season with Francesca and just making sure that she's going to be open to a relationship. And like anyone, Francesca wants what Anthony and Kate have. True love. But what they have is something else. I mean, they're banging each other's brains out, their love and life. And because Kate married Anthony, she's technically supposed to now be the Viscountess. But Violet has yet to move out, and she's dragging her feet, and Anthony's noticed this. So he tells Kate, "Look, I'm going to talk to my mom. I'm going to get her out of this house." But Kate stops him and says, "No, why would you? Look, we have our whole lives to be this count, Viscountess, all that crap. Why don't we just extend the honeymoon? Let her stay. Let her do what she enjoys doing. And, we'll continue to do stuff to each other. Adult stuff. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry. It'll be up in a day or two.